Thank you for joining us, those of you that haven't been around for a while or new faces, and thank you for all those that are on YouTube joining in. I will prepare you. I wore my fun shoes this morning, so y'all better be ready. I'm going to need a high level of participation this morning. And what I'll tell you, the same thing I told first service, is if you are open to participating with me, then maybe we'll stuff the box with more of your name in there to get a possible bagel boy drawn out. Hey, not everybody's comfortable standing up on stage and really, we're going to go through some things today. Here's the thing. We are finishing up the Look Again series where we're looking back at the Easter story and going through and kind of looking a little closer at those people that have come along as characters within the story that maybe we just read right over and miss over, and discover the little intricacies and bits and pieces that God uses along the way as we kind of bypass the bigger characters. We see some of these lesser known characters. What we're going to do today is pick up back where CP was last week. Thank you to him and Lisa. Lisa did awesome with the announcements and CP preaching. Appreciate that. And Dustin for leading worship. And we're going to look back at the trial at Jesus before Pilate, but we're going to take a look at Pilate's wife. So a lesser known person within the gospel story, and really only there for one verse out of all of the New Testament. So I'm going to read that section after I pray, but then I'm going to need help. So I will prepare you. I'm going to need help. So if you're feeling that kind of weird, anxious feeling right here where you go, oh, please don't call on me, you're the one I'm calling on. That's just the way that you know. So I'm going to pray, and then we're going to jump into Matthew 27. So, Spirit, I ask that this morning that you would help us to press pause on the busyness of the day, of the week, that you would help us to hear you, that you would clean out the proverbial wax from our ears so that we can actually hear the things that you have in store for us, that we would be able to be receptive to the things that Matthew wrote thousands of years ago, but that here this day you would speak beyond the buzz of our telephone, beyond the anxiety of the food cooking or the things we have planned for this afternoon. Help us to be attentive now and speak. Amen. Okay, I'm gonna read through Matthew 27, and then we're going to jump into the participation part. Now Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "You have said so," Jesus replied. And when he was accused by the chief priests and the elders, he gave no answer. Then Pilate asked him, "Do you hear the testimony that they are bringing against you?" But Jesus made no reply, not even to a single charge, to the great amazement of the governor. Now it was the governor's custom at the festival to release a prisoner chosen by the crowd. And at that time, they had a well-known prisoner whose name was Jesus Barabbas. So when the crowd had gathered, Pilate asked them, "Which one do you want me to release to you, Jesus Barabbas or Jesus who is called the Messiah?" For he knew that it was out of self-interest that they had handed Jesus over to him. And here's our key text for this morning. Now, while Pilate was sitting on the judge's seat, his wife sent him a message. "Do not have anything to do with that innocent man, for I have suffered a great deal today in a dream because of him." Okay, so in order to grasp this a little better, I need a pilot. Who wants to be my pilot? Here's what we're going to do. I'll just tell you what you're getting into before you get into it. Tanner is outing Dave Hughes. Ignore him. No, Kish doesn't get to be pilot. He's too young. Here's the deal. I don't allow kids to do this so that adults have to participate. What we're going to do is reenact. Here's the irony that this is the cross on here that only the Roman government could give you. And here is some sort of golden thing. We came on Saturday and pillaged the downstairs and ate a few of the snacks from the lock-in. Okay, so we have Pilate. Now I need a Jesus. Pele, you want to be my Jesus? That's culturally appropriate. Okay, so you get to stand here. Paola is a Hebrew, so it's helpful. You get the purple. Nice. And I'm going to give you the crown. Now be very careful. I don't think technically Jesus had this yet, but it's good for the appeal. If it hurts, you just take it off. Okay, stand right in the middle there. Now here's how we start. Billy, I need you to go to the pictures, first picture. So before we jump in here, here's the setting. This is the temple that Herod the Great, remember we talked about all the Herods a few weeks ago? Herod the Great was the one that was alive when Jesus was born. He got all of the favor of the people by building really cool stuff. He built the temple, part of the wall that is still in existence today. The arrow that's pointing to is the Antonian fortress, as in Mark Antony, the guy that didn't get to be Caesar, that got killed, but he was actually in favor and buddies with Herod at the time. So he builds a fortress. You can zoom in on the next one, and you can see where we're actually at. Billy, you hit that next one for me? So you get a little closer. So right next to the temple is where Pilate would hang out. Pilate did not live in Jerusalem. He lived in Caesarea, which was near the Mediterranean coast. Not to be confused with Caesarea Philippi, which is in the north where Herod Philip lived. Okay, remember the Herods actually have connections here. So he's 75 miles towards the coast, comes to Jerusalem, stays at this fortress. The crowds, those that were of the Hebrew nation there for the Passover, would not go inside of this because it's not clean. It hasn't been ceremonial cleansed, which is the irony of being attached to the temple but still not being clean. Like there's an interesting part there. So what happens is Pilate is inside, Jesus is inside, and then overlooking within that little quad area is where you all are. You are the chief priests, the elders, and a number of the crowd that is beginning to amass. Because what's happened is it's gone through the middle of the night. Jesus has gone from Annas to Caiaphas to Pilate to Herod, back to Pilate. We're just getting into the beginning of the daytime. Jesus appears for the final time before Pilate. And now what I need, Billy, is you just go right back to the scripture and we're going to read through it. You have to say things, okay? So Jesus stands before the governor, Pilate, and the governor asks him,
"Are you the king of the Jews?"
Ooh, that was good. And Jesus replies, "You have said so." You have said so. The literal there within the Greek is, you say. Like we make it smoother in English, but the point is he says two words that says, say you. Not me, not anybody else, that's your words. And then we jump in, and then what happens is all of you say mean things to Jesus. So go ahead and say things to Jesus. You have to look at Jesus and say mean things. That was pretty good. The rest of you were awful. 4 of you said mean things. So the chief priests, the elders, those that are kind of in that little temple area off to the side in the quad, they're saying things to Jesus, accusing him, saying crucify him, stuff that we will see later happens. And what does Jesus say? Nothing. And what do you think about that?
Don't you hear the testimony they are bringing against you?
And then read the very last line. The very last line, it says, you were greatly amazed. Look greatly amazed. Now grasp this. Jesus has been up all night long. He went to Garden of Gethsemane to go to bed, to pray and go to bed. They were camping, remember? They come and take him in the middle of the night. He is up all night long going one place to another place, getting questioned back and forth, being accused of things, actually being told things that are true about him, but they don't understand the context. And so Pilate says, "Didn't you hear all the things they just said to you and you didn't say anything? That is bonkers. You don't have anything to say for yourself?" Amazed. Now, Matthew puts that in there specifically because Pilate can't fathom that somebody who thinks they're so innocent or is perceived to be innocent, but all of these other people are accusing him, won't say anything. So you just get to stand there and say nothing. You should look tired, though. You should look tired. Yeah, there you go. That's good. Okay, yeah, that's very easy. Next slide. I don't remember what the next verse is. What happens next? Oh, and then next, Pilate has this custom that he does during the Passover. So during the Passover, then what he does is he allows the group of the crowd. Remember, Passover is when you get set free. Israel is set free from bondage in Egypt, and the Exodus occurs. So this is the celebration of the Passover when the angel went over and took the firstborn of all of those. Now you can see all of the symbolism, firstborn Jesus, and there's more to come. But the point is in giving them something, because the people are kind of stirred up. I mean, if you got together for a really big religious festival where it's really charged and you're still under the oppression of somebody else, Pilate starts, "Do you want Jesus the Messiah who rode in on a donkey and has done nothing else? He's your Messiah." Now CP used the imagery here of Yom Kippur, the scapegoat ritual. Literally, the high priest goes, puts his hand on both of the animals, says a prayer, confesses all the sins of the people, takes one inside to be slaughtered so that the blood goes on the Holy of Holies, and the other one just goes out into the wilderness free. Jesus, Son of the Father, or Jesus, Son of the Father? Which one do you want? And of course, the crowds answer later. But here's where it gets interesting. I need a soldier. Who's going to be my soldier? I made Greg do it in first service, so I won't make him do it in second service unless nobody else chooses. Come on. Oh, Kevin. Okay, I think I got this right. Through here. Oh yeah, you got like this scary looking thing on your shoulder, and don't forget this. You need that. Enter in Pilate's wife. Pilate, your wife has a message for you. How do we know you're Pilate's wife? Because you are actually Pilate's wife. So just give a piece of paper or whatever to this soldier guy. And now you have to take it over to him. Keep in mind, this is a courtroom. And then you read. What did it say? It's up on the screen.
Don't have anything
Turn around and
to do
face
with
them.
this
It's
incident,
scarier that way.
For I have suffered a great deal today in a dream because of him.
Did anybody notice how good he did at like reading the note, but also reading up there? That was good, Dean. That was good. He gets a note or a message that the guard or one of the officers would come over and tell Pilate, "Hey, your wife just gave me this. Leave him alone. He's innocent." Okay, give a round of applause for everybody here. We're going to break this down a little bit. You can wear that still if you want. Yeah, you can keep that for a little while. See, that wasn't too bad. Did everybody have fun during that? For those of you that didn't, you need to wake up your neighbor. Okay. What happened at that point in the story? We have Jesus answered, "You said so." The crowd and the chief priests say a bunch more accusations. Jesus says nothing. Pilate's wife gives a note that says he is innocent, and I've suffered greatly in a dream. Now remember, this is the morning. So she's woken up. She has been awoken. She woke up. She woke up and she's like, "What's going on?" "Oh, Jesus is with Pilate's with the Jesus Messiah guy. They want him to be crucified or something." "Oh, I had a dream about him." So put yourself in the place of a courtroom. Jesus is accused of things. He gives no response. What response is given on his behalf? Pilate's wife. But what does she give? Just her own words or her own things? At the point where Jesus says nothing, probably because he's physically exhausted and just can't do it anymore, God speaks on his behalf. You know how many times I had to read, like you all are like, oh yeah. You know how many times I had to read through this story before I got it? In the midst of a trial, a judicial proceeding. This is Judge Judy times 100 million. We're going all the way back to Wapner and all of that stuff. Any sort of thing that you can imagine. This is serious. Jesus is on trial, and who speaks for him? He doesn't have to say anything. God says he's innocent. Through the wife of the only person that it matters. Doesn't matter to anybody else. This is serious. For those of you non-Bible scholars, this is like mind blown. You say, when does God speak? Well, he speaks exactly when he needs to. So how do we get to putting our own shoes into Pilate's wife's? Put our own feet into Pilate's wife's shoes. The struggle here is Pilate's wife has nothing else written about her anywhere at all. Not even in any sort of histories. So there's Philo, there's Josephus, there's Eusebius, there's a whole bunch of history writers because they took that stuff serious just like we do today. There's nothing. There's a lot of speculation. There are books and things that were written somewhere in the 300 to 400 AD, hundreds of years after the gospel story that I will tell you are not historical. They are not practical. They are not things like Acts of Pilate and the Gospel of Nicodemus. And these things give you conjecture of who she might be, but no information. All we have is information about Pilate. What we know about Pilate is he is middle class. From the historical records, he's a regular middle-class citizen within Rome that was a freed man, so he bought into being a Roman. He wasn't just born natural Roman, or maybe his area was conquered by Rome, and he became a Roman citizen. But he was not at the upper echelon. He was not highly favored. He was a regular person like 98% of us in the room, right in the middle, living life. He meets a guy that is climbing the ladder to the top. This guy eventually tries to kill off all the emperor's kids and then poison the emperor, so he kind of gets booted out. But at this point, that hasn't happened. And so Pilate is buddying up there and eventually gets the governorship of Judea. Now think about the hotbed of craziness. You have all of the different Herods, right? That's hard to keep track of. You have a Jewish people that don't like being ruled or oppressed by anybody. I mean, that is true for the last 5,000 years of history. Anybody. And he's set in place to be the one that rules over them for Rome. So he does what every good Roman governor would do that comes from a not so high background but wants to kind of make a thing, is he comes in and he lays the whooping down. He comes in super heavy-handed. He starts fighting all of the little mini insurrections. He puts up all of these big, shiny shields with the emperor's face on it around the temple. Now, do Hebrew people like it when you put images of other people's face, especially people that claim to be God, in their temple? No, that doesn't go over well. But Pilate does it, and it doesn't go well. We even have a little section in Luke 13, 14, somewhere in there, where there was a fight with some Gentiles, with some Galileans offering sacrifices, and their blood gets spilt with the spilled blood of the sacrifices. He has a hot mess. Now, here's why I'm telling you all this. Whether you are a spouse or a child in the room of your parents, what happens when the other person in the family does not have a good day? Hazel's over here like, you know what I'm talking about here. This is that moment where what we know about Pilate's wife is she bears the burden of all of the craziness that he has to do. Literally. Think about you think from the spouse standpoint of if your spouse has a bad day and comes home and you're like, hey, how you doing? Fine. Oh, are you crabby? Thou shalt not say, are you crabby, ever. Thou shalt say, until it becomes a negligible phrase, how are you doing? Everybody knows in the family when things don't go well. You can ask my kids what happens on a Saturday when dad's kind of grumpy because he's trying to fit together the sermon stuff in the last minute and they're doing some house chores, cleaning, and they don't really do them well. And it's like, you can't see all of this dirt right here? I mean, come on, why can't you do this? Why? It's just simple. When the anxiety, when the pressure builds up, everybody around you feels it. So now take that as someone she is not highborn either. There's some speculation that she was like a cousin or a niece of the emperor, and that's probably not true, or we would really know it. She's in there because she cares and actually loves Pilate. So he comes home and she hears all the craziness. That weighs on her. That's a struggle. We also have the compounding element of women in Roman society. It wasn't entirely as patriarchal as some of the other Middle Eastern societies, but you had to have some sort of clout to have a voice. So for ladies within the Roman Empire, if they were of a high birth, somebody important, then they could speak freely most of the time. For those that didn't, here's what you have to keep in mind. She interrupted a very formal proceeding. Right? Do you see the spouse of anybody in the Derek Chauvin case just stopping in and going, oh, honey, by the way, I meant to tell you. Did you see that during the OJ trial? You remember that time when what's-his-name's wife came in and was like, hey, I forgot to tell you this morning. No. Even on all your Law and Order shows, you never see that because it's not allowed. She interrupts a formal proceeding with a whole bunch of a hot mess out in the crowd trying to get a guy crucified, and she just steps right into that. Now, it's entirely improper for her to just step into the scene, so she has to have somebody that's going to be close to him where she can relay a message. She's willing to risk. Now, we also find that she has a dream. Now, part of this is that she cares enough to be around. Remember, they live in Caesarea, which is 75-ish miles towards the coast. You can imagine, coastal villa, nice little fortress, the Mediterranean breeze flowing in, and she decides to go to Jerusalem. Either A, because she's down for the party. I mean, you can imagine 200-some thousand people goes to 2 million people for a solid week and a half. She's ready to go hang out. Or maybe she's open to a little bit of something more. Maybe she's heard about the things going on. Maybe she's spiritually open to things. We don't know. But it's probably one of those two. What she finds is that Jesus is innocent. Through her dream, God tells her, Jesus is innocent. Now, that word we read as innocent fits within the courtroom. What also fits is it's the exact same word that will be picked up by Paul and other New Testament writers that means righteous, just, pure. Like you are righteousness embodied. You are completely innocent. This is pretty serious. The other thing is she suffered greatly. Now, the word here really means to be heavily affected. Something really affected her in the dream. Now, this is not quite like, I've had a few occasions where I tend to be the person that I lay down in bed at night and it's like, okay, good night, I love you. Done. Like within 28 seconds, I'm asleep. Sometimes I talk in my sleep because I'm having dreams, and so it's usually within that few minutes of falling asleep, and I think it's, And what it really is this is like a dying animal. And the only way I know is Carrie tells me. Carrie will wake me up, you're whimpering. What's wrong? And I'm like, I'm not going to talk because I'm half asleep. I'll tell you about it later. What really happened was, especially that time, I was watching too much of The Walking Dead, and I was killing zombies on a catwalk in a theater with a sword, and so I was screaming and yelling. Dreams affect you. Now, you don't have to remember my zombie dream or anything. You can remember that I whined like a girl, like a little whimpering animal, because I thought I was yelling, but it came out as... But they have some sort of impact. Now, we live in a world where most of that stuff is whatever. Did she have a dream and God spoke through her? Well, Matthew said it. Well, it doesn't really happen around here. I have personally spoken to a man from Iraq who was a refugee, and his name was Hadar. He was a part of the crossing years back, and we're talking to him, and his English is really bad, and we say, how? You grew up Muslim. What's going on? He says, I have dream. Okay. Jesus, he is yes. Muhammad is bad. That's all he could get out, but I knew exactly what he meant. There are multiple cases of this. There are things going on in the Middle East and other places where they don't live in the dream. See, that's how you connect it to you and me. You live in the dream. You know the saying, oh, I'm just living the dream. You have everything right here. All of it. Carrie showed me a thing from a conference where a guy is a missionary over in the Middle East, and he literally had a guy that he went out into the desert, and he spoke to him, and he goes, hey, I heard you've been having some experiences with Jesus. And he's like, I don't know. A guy comes to me at night in my dreams and tells me to write things. Okay. What did he tell you to write? Gets it out. In the beginning was the Word. And the Word was, and you go, oh, how did that happen? You don't think it happens because you live in a Western worldview where you get all of your dreams from this. Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, and all of the other cronies within social media and the rest of the Google world tell you what to think and believe and how to feel, and you have any sort of access you want to this for now, that you live the dream. But the struggle then is, when was the last time this greatly affected you? 2 years ago? 6 years ago? 1996 at summer camp, and that was it? Literally. Or, when was the last time that this caused you to risk? And I don't mean just showing up on Sunday or maybe posting something that might be a little bit on the Christian agenda online that might get you some flack from your not-so-Christian friends. When has that really caused you to risk? Pilate's wife interrupted a grand jury death sentence trial to say, I experienced something and it's really bothering me, but that guy, he's innocent. And the Greek says, you not with him, as in don't have anything to do with him, which we later get the washing hands symbolism of he takes it serious. So here's where things start to connect the dots. If you've struggled with risking for this, and you can't really figure out the last time was that you were greatly affected by this, then you have to ask the question of, do you really understand Jesus being innocent? Now, we can kind of understand getting in trouble for things that you didn't do. CP talked about that last week, of actually not getting in trouble for things that you did. He told me all the dudes in the room were like, oh yeah, there was that one time. But have you really grasped the innocence of Jesus? We're talking world-changing power. We read the salvation story and go, Jesus gave up his life for me. No, he didn't. Jesus gave up his life so that his innocence would allow God to tolerate your filth. Perfection does not stand with imperfection. Many of you women have a little thing on your finger, and if you look really close, you can see whether it was a V or a VV or an S or a 1 or a 2 because it has dots in it. And if it's clear, perfect, it's perfect. I could do how many illustrations with water and put yucky things in it, and you won't have anything to do with it. Right? Imagine that from a cosmic scale. What we've lived all of our lives is thinking, Jesus died for me. Well, yes, but no, he died so that, Paul says repeatedly, in him, through him, with him, always him, he is the innocent one. And when you say, Jesus, I want to partake in your innocence, God says, son, daughter, chosen one from before the dirt of the ground was laid, you are mine. Now you should understand that if you don't risk and you're not greatly affected, maybe you don't understand what innocent meant for Jesus. Because what it means is that you are not, and he is. We will see that in the next coming weeks. Next week is the crowd. Let's pray. Spirit, I ask that you would seal within us the things that need to stick. You would let us forget the things and the antics that don't really matter. Help us to lay our heads on our pillows tonight and think of the times where we've suffered for you, where we've been greatly affected by you, where we've risked for you and your kingdom. And give us courage to wake up to a new day. Amen.